Okay, today's spell work says Aisha is finding b plus 5 equals -8. We want you to find her mistake and correct it. So right here we have the problem, b plus 5 equals -8, and we have Aisha's work down here. We want you to pause the video at this time and see if you can figure out what her mistake was and write it next to it and solve it the correct way. Pause the video and solve now. Today's lesson is going to be solving equations with rational coefficients. If the coefficient is a decimal, we're going to divide each side by that coefficient. So the coefficient is the number in front of the variable. So the number in front of my variable is 0.25, which happens to be a decimal. Since it's connected by multiplication, we learned yesterday that the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to undo it by dividing both sides by my coefficient, which is 0.25. If I do it to one side, you remember we have to do it to the other side in order to keep it equal. So I also have to divide 16 by 0.25. You might want to do this by hand to keep your decimal division and multiplication sharp, but you may use a calculator. 16 divided by 0.25 would give me n equals 64. Again, you could check this like I showed you in the last example in yesterday's lesson and check it, which is always a good idea, by plugging it back into the variable. So if I have 16 equals 0.25, I said n equaled 64. So I'm going to plug in 64 wherever there is an n. So I have 16 equals, I'm going to plug in my calculator, 0.25 times 64, and I get 16. 16 does equal 16, so I got the answer correct. I'm done. Next, if the coefficient in a multiplication equation is a fraction, you're going to multiply each side by the reciprocal of the coefficient. If you remember from 6th grade, we learned that the reciprocal of a fraction is you flip the reflection, you flip the denominator and the numerator. So, in this case, 3/4 is connected to my x. I'm going to flip my numerator and my denominator. So, my numerator now becomes my denominator, and my denominator now becomes my numerator. Remember, the rule is if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. So, I have 4/3 over here, so I have to multiply the other side also by 4/3. Now, 4 cancels 4, 3 cancels 3, which is what we want. We want to get rid of those numbers in front of the variable. I'm left with x. On this side, I can do something called cross simplification. Cross simplification means that you can simplify across from each other, diagonal. So I'm going to look at 20 and 4. Can you think of any number that I can take out of 20 and 4? If you pick 2 or 4, both are correct. If you pick 2, you'd have to simplify again. 4 is the highest number. So if I divide 4 by 4, what am I left with? Good. 4 divided by 4 is 1. If I divide 20 by 4, 20 divided by 4 gives me 5. I can also cross-simplify going the opposite direction. What is the biggest number I can take out of both 12 and 3? If you said 3, you're correct. 3 divided by 3 leaves me with 1. 12 divided by 3 leaves me with 4. Now that I have simplified, I can now multiply my new blue numbers together. 4 times 1 is a lot easier than multiplying 12 times 4. 4 times 1 gives me 4. 5 times 1 gives me. At the end, if I have a fraction, I'm going to look at it and say, can I simplify it any further? I cannot take anything else out of 4 or 5, so my answer is x equals 4/5. If you wanted to check this, it's always a good idea. I always encourage students to check their work, because especially when you take a test or a quiz, this is the easiest thing that you can check and make sure you did it right. I'm going to rewrite my original problem. Wherever I see an x, I'm going to plug in what I got for x, which was my 4/5. So I'm going to have 3/4 times 4/5 equals 12/20. Now I want my answer to be 12/20 for it to be correct. So I'm going to multiply 3 times 4 gives me 12. 4 times 5 gives me 20. And in fact, that equals 12/20. So I know my answer of 4/5 is correct. Now I want you to try on your own. See if you can get any of these. If you get stuck on any, you will have time in class to where we'll go over this, or you will have time to work on it and ask me questions, and I can help you.